Hi, you're listening to Book Chat with author Vivian E. Moore.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. This podcast really shows us how we can all learn, live, and thrive off of each other. By sharing our knowledge through our conversations, we will impart some knowledge whilst learning ourselves how to progress even further. Here is your host.
Hello and welcome to Book Chat. I am your host, author Vivian E. Moore. I hope everyone is having a lovely Saturday. I hope you had a great 4th of July, and I hope you had a great week. Today we have a special guest. We have with us author Paige Frost, and we're going to let Paige tell you a little bit about herself before we get into her book, Conditional Love. So, Paige, welcome to the show, and share with the audience just a little about yourself, if you don't mind.
Okay. Well, first, Vivian, thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Okay. So, my name is Paige Frost. I grew up in Spartanburg, South Carolina. I currently reside in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I have 3 kids, and this is my first book that I've published called Conditional Love. I've been writing for years, and finally my best friend just, was tired of me talking about me wanting to publish a book, and he just encouraged me to go ahead and do something I've been wanting to do for forever. Mm-hmm. So I finally published it, and I couldn't be happier. So.
Well, congratulations to you on your work. Sometimes that's what you need. It's just that little, just a little bit of confidence. Someone to boost it, someone to get behind you, and tell you need to do this. Because sometimes we have a problem with seeing our own potential, and it takes other people, to show us, to tell us, hey, you got this, go for it. Right. So I'm glad that your best friend did that, because otherwise we wouldn't have the opportunity to talk about this book, Conditional Love, and it is a great story. When I know firsthand, what it's like to grow up, in a Black family. It was a great experience, and sometimes not so great. For one, all the secrecy. How it is. Parents always said, what happens in this house stays in this house. So and that's just something that I totally identified with. With reading this book. But two, when you have things like that within a family where, nothing is ever discussed outside of those walls, bad things can happen. And then they go unanswered because, there's a lot of secrecy involved. So, when I read the first chapter, I started nodding my head in agreement immediately. I was like, oh, okay, I see, I can picture it. I can see this. I was like, yeah, I've experienced this before. And, and we know that your book is a work of fiction, but in every fictional story lies some truth. And, we can all identify with the characters in your book. I know I could. At least 9 out of 10 people will agree, with the story that you weaved. So now in creating Conditional Love, did you use real names or fictional characters?
No, all fictitious names.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And because I was about to say, if you did decide to use fictional names, I knew you would ask, permission first to do that. And so you told us that you grew up in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and we know that that's a real place. And what was it like growing up there?
I loved it. It was, country. It's just, the kids run outside all day. You're barefoot. People walking around eating pickled pig. And yeah, that's
That's country.
So,
That is country. Now, y'all didn't do the liver pudding stuff, did you? Growing up in South Carolina, you didn't have that on the menu,
no,
did you?
no, ma'am.
Because I know that's part of some people who grew up in South Carolina, especially, I don't know how rural Spartanburg was or is, but it just sounds like one of those communities that's small where everybody knows everybody. And yeah, so I mean that is a great backdrop for this story, and I mean that's a great backdrop for you as a person to have grown up, in that type of setting. So and I love the picture that you painted of your grandmother, Lillian, in the story. And, every family has that one strong person that is the backbone of the family, the one who nurtures and basically takes care of everyone else. So, you listed great detail about this character. And why did you feel it was essential to do this?
I wanted to make sure that everyone could relate to the story. Mm-hmm. And most people, if not everyone that I know, has a matriarch family. Mm-hmm. So I want to make sure that I place emphasis on the importance of this person because, normally in the Black family, the grandmother is the end all and be all of the family.
Yes.
So I wanted to make sure that I placed emphasis and put as much respect on that as possible mm-hmm. because that's what we all can relate to.
Well, I agree with you 100% because that's very much true. Growing up in a Black family, my mother was the matriarch of our family, and, not just for us, not just for her children, but for her grandchildren and nieces and, just everybody, even people that were in the neighborhood, they would always come to our house, everybody knew who she was. And, it just, at the time, being selfish a child, you think, well, why does everybody come to my house? This is my mother or whatever, but now looking back on those years, I see that it was a sign of respect. They gave her the utmost respect because, they saw her role. Now, just going over the synopsis, because we skipped over that a little bit, getting, because of my excitement to get into the story, but I like how you wrote it. Said that you never expected to wake up in the home of strangers and life was perfect while your grandmother was alive. And as you mentioned before, she was the matriarch of the family and she took care of everyone. And so she lost her life battling cancer. And so and with your character Paige as a young child, she passed away when you were the age of 9. And so that sort of catapulted you into a totally different phase of your life, not having that solid foundation anymore to depend on. And we know family is a precious commodity. It's the foundation that holds us together. And the traditions that we follow, through each generation, sometimes those traditions are harmful, as you described so poignantly, and I see them as sometimes generational curses. And I think it's important to break some of those strongholds, some of those cycles that that can destroy us. Sometimes we need to destroy those cycles and reset the balance. So, so we can have a different pattern to follow. And I'm saying this because I'm about to lead into the character that you wrote as your mom, May. We see May, and better known as Lily, the mother who was unstable. And of course, she subjects her children to her instabilities. And, as a prime example of who not to look up to as a role model or pattern setter, as opposed to, your grandmother who in the story, who everyone looked up to. Now, if we were to dissect Lily's character, we'd find underlying problems not addressed, in the right way, her underlying problems not addressed in the right way, Right. And when I read the book and, reading about Lily's character, and I see that, she, even though she came from this strong woman, who was like she was like the salt of the earth, the stability that everybody needed, especially her grandchildren. And of course, Lily was the most unstable person in this story. And, and I looked at her. I mean, I didn't look down on her character. I didn't look down on her as a mother. I think she did the best that she knew how to do, because there were some underlying issues with her that I don't think was recognized. And right. I think her family, enabled her. They were enablers. Instead of getting her the help that she needed, they placated her, in a way that proved detrimental to herself and her young children. Sometimes, you have those, what stays in this house, what said in this house stays in this house. But, as your character, Paige, tells the story, relives the story of her childhood, we saw how that affected her. So do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so did you just want me to talk about it, or are you going to ask me something?
No. I want you to talk about Paige's character in this story, because she's the narrator. Yeah.
Again, I was trying to write something that can be as relatable as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And again, from when I grew up, a lot of people were used to being raised, if not just always, with their grandmother. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was a normal thing.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if your parents were younger. I heard stories from different people about different situations, and so I just wanted to just make a story that was, again, that people could relate to, that was, that people could understand.
Mm-hmm.
So, but now this is the first book out of a series of 3.
Okay.
So I didn't touch on Lily's, why she was the way that she was,
Mm-hmm.
but I did kind of want to set the tone for that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Because
and you did a great job with doing that, with setting that tone for her. Paige, are you still with us? Did we lose you? Oh, guys, I think we lost Paige. I'm going to see if I can get her back.
I don't know.
There you are. We lost you there. We lost you there for a minute.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. So if you'll just repeat what you said, you set the tone for Lily. We lost you there for a few seconds.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on.
No problem.
So I was trying to set the tone in book 1,
Mm-hmm.
but I definitely, it's a storyline, and it's going to be in the other books.
Uh-huh.
It's going to show the different light on Lily.
Okay.
And the relationship definitely changes, because I will say this, and a lot of people call themselves, being angry at their parents for how they grew up.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, everyone is just doing the best that they know how to.
Right.
And I wanted to touch on the fact that, especially, I used to always hear, when you have kids, your relationship changes with your parents. Like they're completely different people with their grandkids.
Yeah.
And so I definitely wanted to, because there's going to be a change in the relationship, and I definitely wanted to show growth there and show the change and show how that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately, there is love there, and there is a rebuilding of their relationship, but it definitely takes work, and it takes Paige having her kids to understand, okay, my kids may grow up and some of the things my mom did I would never do.
Right.
But, and they wouldn't know that I was doing the best that I could do in certain situations as well.
Right.
So I feel like that's a common thing, and I definitely, my main thing is to touch on common things that we see happening. I just try to touch here, I talk about children being molested within the family.
Yeah.
I try, so I try to touch on things that I know happen and that people don't speak about.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
And I think you did a wonderful job setting that up, and two, you showed the child's perspective of her relationship with her mother, and of course that's the right tone for that, because, that's how you see the world right now, because it's a child telling her side of the story. So, and I totally got that, and that's why I said, Lily probably was doing the best that she could, but then you have to look at the way you told the story and look at her, her mother, and then her sister, and and her brothers, how they were there for her, trying to help her, but just not in the right way. They weren't helping the situation much, by the actions that they were taking. But that's wonderful, because we need to know this, all of these details, before that next book comes out. And the book ended, and I was like, wait a minute, it's over.
That's what a lot of people say. I got so many messages like, wait, is there another book? And I'm like, yes, I was struggling with how to end it and where to end the book. I didn't know if people would understand that there was another one coming, or there was more to come. So I'm glad people are wanting more. That made me feel good. So. Oh
yeah, how you started it. You were telling a story within a story, and so so when I read that part of it, I thought that was going to be what the story was about. But then you led in with something else, and I was like, okay, so that's like a preview of what's to come. And so I was like, wow, this is good. This is very good. And so now I want to touch on your relationship with the bond that you shared with your sister and your brother in this story. And I think that's important as well. To show their characters so clearly. So now, if you were to dissect their character, what parts can we say are real? Because, as I said before, in every fictional story, there is some truth underneath in there. So it's things that we pull from, from our own personal experiences. And as writers, we embellish those things because that's important to be a good storyteller. So what parts can you pull out from your book, brother and sister, that you can relate to in real life?
I'm trying to see. When my brother and sister read the book, they said about 90% of that was true about themselves. so I stayed true to their characters. My brother was very protective.
Mm-hmm.
My sister was very young and very innocent. She's younger than me, so we always took care of her.
Mm-hmm.
We always took care of her. So I definitely stayed true to their characters and to the essence of who they are and who they were.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say about 90% of what I wrote about my siblings was true.
Was true. Okay. Because it was so well scripted. I was like, okay, so some of this had to some of their personalities had to be put into these characters, because I can see the brother being the protector of his sisters, and then I can see the little sister not being completely aware, but still gaining strength from from her older sister and her older brother in this story. And but within those, within this short story, within these few pages that you wrote, you packed a lot of stuff in there. And the story was just so interesting. And I don't get the opportunity to read a lot of physical books. I listen to audiobooks most of the time. Well, all of the time, pretty much. But generally, I try to read whenever I have maybe, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever. So, if I'm reading maybe a 300-page book, it's going to take me a while to get it read, because of the fact that I don't have a lot of time to, to give to reading physical books. But I think I probably read this book probably in about 3 days, even with that little bit of time that I had. Whenever I had a chance to read, I read it, because it pulls you in from the very first paragraph. It pulls you in to the story, and it don't let you go until at the end, and that's so unexpected, but still it's good to know that there's more to come. Like I said, it was such a great story, and it made me reflect on my own childhood, and I think that stories like this is so important, because you did touch on a lot of things. You touched on the neglect of parents. You touched on the sexual abuse and the physical abuse, in this story. And I laughed about the strap. I forgot what it was called.
Oh, rock.
Rock.
That was real. My grandma really had a rock.
I started laughing. I was like, oh my gosh, everybody had, a instrument of torture. That's what I like to call them in your house, growing up that you feared because it kept you on that straight and narrow path. You didn't want to get in trouble, so you would have to experience that. But I just thought that was such a good name to give to a name that everybody recognized. And I read a part of it, and I don't want to give too much about the book because I don't know, give too much away about the book because I don't know who all has read it and who all haven't read it yet. But it's just certain parts in there that was just funny to me. And can I share? I have to share this part. It's the part where the brother had gotten in trouble and he was getting a spanking from the mom. And, oh, that was so funny. The grandmother had enough of it, and she took control of the situation and started spanking the mother. So, oh my gosh.
That was her baby. So, no, she wasn't having that.
No, not at all. But I think we all, because my mother had her favorites, as far as grandkids, and you're right about. The relationship between children and their parents changing once they have kids, because it's like the focus is not so much on their children anymore, but those grandkids. And I can attest to that because I have grandkids, and it's so very true. And there is no punishment when you have grandkids, because that's not your job, to discipline them. I mean, of course, it's your job to make sure that they're following guidelines and doing things that are right. You bring them up in the right way, by using directives, but it's not so much my job to discipline. That's the role of the parent, to do that, because those are their kids. But I just love the beautiful story that you wrote, and and including your grandmother, because I know you took pieces of her personality, even though these characters are fictional. You took pieces of their personalities and weave them into this story, and that is what makes it seem so real. And I absolutely love that part of the book, and I am definitely looking forward to the next ones when they come out. Do you know how long it'll be before the next part of the series comes out?
I plan on releasing the second book. Let me see. It is going to be December 14th.
Okay, December the 14th. Okay. Well, that's about less than 6 months away. So that's not a long time to wait for it, because I'm pretty sure you're working on it right now, and and that's good. And so I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait for it to become available. And talking about availability, please share with us where everyone else can find your book.
Okay, so you can definitely add me on Instagram, Paige D. Brown, where you can find the link in my bio. Mm-hmm. You can also check out the book on Amazon.com, Conditional Love, by Paige Frost. So that's where you can find it.
Okay, all right. Well, that's good to know. And also, do you have any other social media that you would like to share with the audience so they can also, like you, follow you that way as well?
You can. Just Instagram. You can add me on Instagram, Paige D. Brown, all lowercase. And that's where you'll find all my updates about the book and the link for the book and everything.
Okay. All right. Well, Paige, it has definitely been a pleasure talking with you today about this book. And I know that other great things are coming your way, and we can't wait to experience that with you when it happens. I wish you all the success on your book series, and just keep up the good work, because we need more stories like this.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, you too.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, folks, so that was Paige Brown. Not Paige Brown. Paige Frost. Sorry about that, Paige. I'm sorry. Anyway, and she was talking about her book. And if you haven't gotten it yet, please go out and get her book. It's available on Amazon. I think you can get it on the Kindle Unlimited right now for free to read it. and it will be totally worth your time to get this book and to read it. And, like I said, coming from a Black family, I identified with a lot of things that she put into this story. And, as I'm sure, not just Black families, but any family, will be able to relate to, because it's just that type of book. It's very relatable. And, show her some support. I love the story. And I can't wait for the next 2 books to come out, the next 2 books in the series to come out. The second one comes out, she said, December the 14th. So be on the lookout for that. And hopefully we can bring Paige back again once the second book comes out, maybe not in December, but hopefully sometimes next year, so we can talk about it. All right, folks. So before I let you go, I need to give you a few details here of how to stay in contact with the show and with me. Of course, Spreaker is https://www.spreaker.com/user/author Vivian E. Moore. You can also follow me, like me, on Facebook and as well as Twitter, God's Property 46, and Instagram, God's Property 51. You can also go to my website. And if you go to either Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, all of those things are there. You can just click on the links and it'll take you straight to all of my social media pages. Also, if you like reading the blogs, you can go to https://vivianemore.blogspot.com. Also, if you missed the live version of the show today, you can listen to the recorded one on iTunes and iHeartRadio.com. Well, tomorrow is worship day, and I hope you're planning on going out to worship. Take some family members with you, take some friends, take some children with you by all means, and tell someone that you love them, because tomorrow is not promised. Today may be the only chance you get to say that. So I love you. I hope you love me back. Until the next time you hear my voice, God bless you and goodbye.
Loved what you've heard on this week's episode? Well, the answer is simple. It would mean the world to us if you could head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review and feedback. Spreading the word really is the best way to grow our podcast and achieve even greater things. Thank you.